guys know me right now, right? I sit down to watch one movie, and it'll become two. Always. 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 So, yeah. I watched Funny Girl film from 68 with Barbra Streisand. I thought, nice, relaxing. I'm going to rewatch it. I've watched it a long time ago, so I had some opinions about it beforehand. I was going, I want to see what my opinions are now. The reasons that I took a long time to rewatch the movie was that I remembered the story. And if you haven't seen it, spoiler now, but old movie, so...
you had some time to watch it.
You had enough time to watch it. It's a story of a love that doesn't work out, and that's sad. And so when you watch the movie for the second time, being aware that you know this love is not going to work out, and they are so in love, especially her, she's so in love with this guy, because it's her story and not his, and it doesn't work out, and it's sad, and yeah, that made it harder to watch, I have to say. The story is actually after history, a real person's story with real people in it, which is actually a problem, because I looked these people up and stories are not exactly as they should be. I think I'm going to start with Mr. Arnstein in the story, the guy, who is played by Omar Sharif, who does his absolute best to make a guy who was on paper kind of meh. Make him interesting, make him fun, make him charming, make him lovely. He even sings. Omar Sharif sings. Kudos, Omar Sharif, because I don't think he has any sort of singing chops at all. I mean, he's willing to carry the tune if you give him the buckets. But he does. He doesn't have a lot of singing because Streisand does most of the singing. But he's the only other person in this thing who gets a chance to sing. And he does. And he doesn't make it look weird. And he doesn't make any part of this weird. But Arnstein is not a nice person. And they make him out to be much nicer in the show than he was in reality. And I was going, it's nice, but why? And then I found out why. You see, he had with Fanny Brice, they had 2 children, a boy child and a girl child, and the girl child grew up and married a producer of film who then, because she was the daughter of a famous vaudevillian, he picked up the story. But because they're that closely associated, they have to be somewhat nice to the property, if you know what I mean. I think for his father-in-law, basically, even though he probably never met the guy, because Arnstein disappeared. It is the father of his wife, so he has to say something nice about him, and maybe that's the reason why. Still, the love story doesn't work out because it didn't work out. Ends up in a divorce, and that's sad because they were so in love, and that's what the film shows, is how in love especially she was with him, with the idea of being married as well, which is it's the second thing that I had a problem with in conjunction with the actual reality, because history tells a different story. Fanny Brice was already married once for a couple of years, which ended up in a divorce even before she met Mr. Arnstein. And he came out of prison, 14-month sentence prison, which she must have been aware of, and she married him. And they were married for I think 6 years, and then he did something stupid and ended up in prison again. And all the time, he took her for a lot of money. That's the actual story. It's not fun. So this is better, but it's not reality. And I think that maybe is a big complaint of this entire thing. There's also the hype of Barbra Streisand doing this, because there's a whole hype around this. Then Fanny Brice was a theater lady. She started in 1911, I believe, with some burlesque vaudevillian stuff, and then graduated to Ziegfeld Volleys. And from that moment on, she was known for singing torch songs, and for funny skits, and for a lot of impressions of Jewish people. She is Jewish, so she was doing... What she was doing is something that you cannot do quite the way we do it now. If you watch a skit from her, there's a few of them on film, but not many. But if you watch it, you go, oh my god, oh my god, oh, problems. You cannot do what she's doing. You cannot do anymore. In fact, I think what she was doing, you could not do that again in '68 when they did this movie, or '64 when they did the musical, because it's from a musical and that was successful, and then they made it into a movie. But a whole bunch of things that Fanny Brice used to do in the 10s, the 20s, and the 30s, you cannot do in '68, and that this film realized that and skirted around all these things, and she did years and years. She did a routine of being a little girl, and the film realized we have to do that, but we want to squash it as far down as possible. So basically you get to see her in the little girl costume when she walks off stage after a performance. You don't get to see the performance, because no. Oh my god, no. They do a lot about the Jewishness, because that was her shtick. That was her thing, and that she was Jewish. However, again, they realized this was a problem, and in casting the role in '64, I think they were looking since 1940. They were looking for somebody to do this. They were thinking now maybe since 1950, because she died in '51. So sometime after that, they decided they wanted to do something like that, and since that time they were working on it. So for 15 years they worked on it before they actually had enough that they could do it. And they had Anne Bancroft to possibly do it, or Carol Burnett. And Bancroft, I'm not sure why Anne Bancroft dropped out. It's on the wiki somewhere. But Carol Burnett dropped out because she said because Fanny Brice was actually a pretty good singer. Not as good as Streisand, but pretty good in her own right. And so the songs they wrote for her, for the role, were pretty complicated. And Carol Burnett went, that's a little bit more than I can handle. And Barbra Streisand can carry it off. She was very young when they put her in '64. She was bloody young. She's like 20 or something like that. But she can carry it off musically. In the '68 film, Funny Girl, I think compared to Funny Lady, which was in '75, and we'll talk about Funny Lady in a second, but one of the big things that I noticed when I watched Funny Lady is that I think her performance is much more polished and better in Funny Lady. I understand why Funny Girl is more famous, but I think her performance is just better. Because she's that much, she's like 7 years older. She just knows more, and that makes a difference. It makes a difference. And song-wise, she's the same, because Streisand is always the same. So the problem is that they could not do the story as written, because the story itself, the history, sucks. And some of the associated stuff around Fanny Brice is problematic. And now we have the problem that what we have of Fanny Brice is Funny Girl. We have so much less of Fanny Brice herself. Because we have a couple of skits that were on the film and she made like 2 records. Because she was not a recording artist. She was not a filming artist. She was a theater person. All she did from age 17 until she died is be on tour or be in a studio doing radio. That's all she did. And so that's what we have left, is radio stuff and photos and stories. But as such, it's an interesting time to live in. What I was worried about in rewatching the 68 movie, the Funny Girl movie, is, oh my God, what are they going to do with the costumes? Because I hadn't checked what the period was, but I remembered that they didn't do much with the costumes. I remembered it wrong. They did a lot with the costumes, but and I think it's on the director. The director, it's very interesting. I have him here. A chap called William Wyler, who was born in 1902. So an older gentleman who did little ditties like Ben-Hur and Roman Holiday. He has 3 Best Director Oscars under his belt, and he started in the silent era. Considering that this time period in which this is set is 1911 to the first movie is 1911 to 1927. This is exactly the period that this director knows everything about, because he was there, he lived it, everything, and it shows in the choice of what to show. Lots of things about theater, because movies in that era would have been like doing theater, but with, but the costumes is very interesting, because I don't think that this film time was very interested in being accurate, period accurate. However, the costume person, whoever was in charge of that, knew enough about these periods to pick out of because they do the 1911 periods and they do the 20s, somewhere 1921-ish period, so that they pick that and highlight it a little bit. But they know enough about both periods to pick out what is essential about this fashion. Especially about the 1910 fashion, fully Edwardian, which had a very high waistline, just right under the boobs, and then down a drop. But, and that people forget that, there was lots of going on the skirts. These people know. There is a lovely evening gown that she wears for the party on Hester Street, which I think it's the wrong material. But like I said, they're not really trying to be accurate. They wanted to look-ish, get the feel-ish. So the material is wrong. I can see that. It's too plasticky. It should be pure silk, but it's not. The shape is correct. The shape of her dress, I'll see if I can find a picture. I'll put it here, if I can find a picture. It's correct. And the scene wherein the company goes on tour, all these girls on tour at the station, everybody in long coats, outside to wear, it is choice. It is exactly like the fashion plates of the era. So it's correct. And done with materials of 1968. Fair enough. But the choice of what to put in and what to leave out. Smart. Now, 1921 or 21 to 27, I was going to go, flapper, we must have flapper. Yeah. You already know that Hollywood hates flapper. And no. They sidestep it. Artfully. In a way that shows that the guy knows what the F he's talking about. There is one dress that I think is meant to be a flapper dress, but you never get to see more than just the torso, so you don't actually get to see it. It has the tassels. So I think that may have been a flapper dress, but I cannot say anything about the hemline because I didn't see it. The problem is that it is bright red, and I don't think bright red is the right color for that age. Okay. The other thing that she, especially Fanny, of course, wears is that they make her wear the entire, because she's already a married lady. She's not a young whippersnapper. She's not a party girl or anything. So they let her wear something called evening pajamas. Evening pajamas are a thing you sometimes see in the fashion books. The thing is, it's very rare. Hardly ever anybody ever wore it. It's like a silk tunic and silk trousers, very light and very fluffy, and not a flapper dress. But yes, it existed, but very few people wore it. So the fact that she's wearing like 2 or 3 of them, forget it. That's not. But I understand they want to get a sort of a look, but without actually putting any priority on it. So making her comfortable, as in Barbra Streisand, comfortable in what she's wearing is more important than giving her a flapper dress. They did have her have short hair, because the hair was interesting. Also, the person who did the looks, also knows about hair. The very, very first scene in 1911, when Fanny is 17 years old, she started real early in performances. She started dancing for burlesque. That doesn't sound as bad as it ought to sound, but burlesque was not that dire at the time. It became dire later. But she was a dancer, but she was 17, and the very first costume she has actually is a little girl's costume, or a girl's costume, not a woman's costume. She also has like the drop waist all the way to her knee, and she has her hair down, because girls, little immature girls, girls who have not gained maturity enough, have their hair down, and she has her hair down. She has her hair down too long in the scenes, but that's because she's doing quite a grown-up job. I think real Fanny Brice had her hair up at this point and was wearing grown-up dresses, but they didn't want to do that. When she has the party in Hester Street, she's wearing a grown-up dress, and I think she's wearing her hair. Is she wearing her hair up? I'd have to check. I don't think she's wearing it down. When we get to the 20s, she has short hair. However, it's a 60s interpretation of short hair. She also doesn't have the bangs, because they had bangs. She has a sort of a... I'll do it, but you can see what I mean. They understood that the look had to be short, so they're doing a short hair, but they're doing a 60s interpretation of short hair. I don't have any problem with that. And in the 1911 sequence, when she's still a young girl, well, 17, she still lived with her mother, and all the ladies of Hester Street, you see all of them, and they all have a Edwardian hairdo with a sort of an impression of a Gibson girl hairdo for slightly older ladies, and they have a Edwardian, and actually a little older, like 1900s sort of look. And again, it is a case of the person understood what the fashions were, and makes an interpretation of it in a way that I see what you're doing it from knowledge. No, you're not doing it from ignorance. And that was good. I really liked that. And I think in combination with the director, who also has been through all these times and can say this is wrong and that's right, that they made a lot of good things out of that. Yeah.
So I have questions. Hats. Do they use them properly?
No. Nobody wears hats. Nobody wears hats. Period. No.
Oh. Other question, completely different thing. The Hays Code, which was at its absolute last legs in '68, it was almost thrown out the window at that point. Do you see any? Can you relate it? What they put on screen with the Hays Code a little bit?
The central story of this film is Fanny Brice is a young, up-and-coming comedian, but she has self-esteem issues because she thinks she is not pretty. This is a truism because Fanny Brice was never known for being pretty. She was known for singing and for being funny, not for pretty. And Barbra Streisand, I think, feels she has a similar problem, that she's not pretty. I disagree. She's absolutely gorgeous, but okay. That's our opinion of our time now. We're not that worried about evenness of that doesn't matter. The central plot is that she fundamentally thinks that she is not pretty enough, and when a guy comes and is interested, who is very handsome because he's Omar Sharif, she goes, I mean, really.
Yeah.
But
isn't that kind of like the Cinderella story as well?
Yeah, the problem is that it's actually really well written story, because it is twofold. She has the problem that she feels she is not pretty enough, and then he has to convince her, and it takes her the film to figure out, yeah, okay, let's go do this. And then when they do it, because history doesn't stop, he runs into a problem. She is very famous and she gets a lot of attention, and he very quickly becomes Mr. Brice, and he wants to be he wants her to be Mrs. Arnstein. So this goes into his pride problem, his self-esteem problem. What is he worth as a man if he cannot pay the servants for taking care of the kids? She's paying them behind his back, and he implodes on that. And so they both have a story arc in this thing. It's not what happened in reality, but in this thing, she has to try and feel pretty enough or wanted enough by him to make it work. But he also has to get over his pride enough to make it work. And the thing is, he can't. That's the sad part. She got over it. He couldn't get over himself. That's why, again, kudos to Omar Sharif, because this is not a fun part to play. I think, he did it really well, but this is not, this is not a happy... On my list, I have a very few notes, and the very first one is this a musical? Because this is classed as a musical, and it's on the list of musicals. Everybody says musical. And except for that one song that Arnstein sings, every number is either Fanny's inner thoughts or it's a production number. And I think that makes it's not This is not a musical. This is a drama or a narrative with music in it. Also because Barbra Streisand is so such a powerhouse. She overshadows everything. And in the 64, when they made this musical, when they were rehearsing, there was actually much more other musical numbers, but they all got cut. Even Arnstein's song is actually cut down to a duet between Arnstein and Fanny. So he almost wasn't in it at all. But I'm glad that he got to sing something to give him a little bit more, because this is not easy. So I don't think this is a musical. It's still going to be on lists of musicals, of course. But and I'm sure if you like musicals, you will enjoy it. There's a lot of music in here, but it's one of those. Hollywood and the theater has always been really good at showing itself. This is a nostalgia fest. This is a nostalgia fest made by a very good director who lived in the same period and wants to show what is good about this period, without showing the problems of the period. Because the only thing that is important about this movie is the fact that it's about a Jewish woman who says so and talks about Jewishness, and that in 68 or in 64 when they first did it was pretty new. Fanny Brice had always put it forward. She made it funny because that's the only way you could talk about it, but this one talks about it not as serious I would like. I mean, they put her there as a Jewish lady with family. They don't do anything with any problems around being Jewish. It's just that she's different.
And her husband?
His name is Arnstein. The film doesn't say that he is obviously also Jewish. Director is also Jewish, by the way, but that's sort of incidental.
Well, that's for current standards. That is actually coming up to current standards. It's like, own voices.
Yeah, this is definitely an own voices thing. And then when you come to the second one, The Funny Lady, which is like 7 years later, and it's now 1975, and a lot has happened. We have a new director, also interesting. His name is Herbert Ross. He is 30 years younger than the other director, and still he understands the nostalgia bit of it. But one of the differences is that with the other director was film director. He was film, he was Hollywood, he did everything film. This guy is a stage guy. He has been involved in stage productions. He understands the stage. And that's why Funny Lady is interesting, is you get to see a lot of stage stuff going on, which they also do in Funny Girl, but they don't have time to do everything. And what I noticed about Funny Lady is I was watching it and I'm going, this is fanfic. This is straight up fanfic. And the reason it is fanfic is because what fanfic does is give you more and do the little missing scenes, the things you wanted to see. One of the things, because it does play after Funny Girl, after the story ends, this movie happens, she gets a chance to talk to Arnstein and work it out, which I think is the most important thing about this movie, is that she gets to say her moment to say something about it to Arnstein, and he actually doesn't even get a chance to answer.
And then she gets to say it as an adult as well, because 20-year-old is not, well, you said Streisand was 20, but Fanny was 17 when it starts and when she meets him.
Little older, yes.
Okay, so she's still a late teenager. I won't say that is not somebody who can make their own decisions. However, it matters a great deal if you're 10 years older and you actually have some life experience. And then you can state, okay, this is how I feel about the relationship, how it went.
Yeah, and then she can also work out the last of her feelings, because not until she can let Arnstein go can she pick up her new guy.
Ooh.
There is a new guy. He's played by James Caan. And he gets to sing a little bit.
I believe he's also Jewish.
Probably. I think everybody sort of related to this thing is going to be Jewish. It's start of his career, by the way. He got famous out of this one, so go him. He plays the third guy in Fanny's life, who is on the wiki a real guy, a theater guy, and now very smartly written, because this guy, as suave and slick as Arnstein was, this guy is rough around the edges. She needs to tell him to straighten his clothes. She needs to tell him not to be a slob. And he is the complete antithesis. But he is somebody who sticks better. I mean, it still doesn't out. And I think that is more of a problem, that they both have careers, and she's on the road, and when she's in town to do a show, and he's on the road to set up a show, because that's the job. And
yeah, his parents were Jewish immigrants from Germany. His father was a kosher meat dealer. So
there you go.
That doesn't preclude him from playing Sonny Corleone in Godfather.
He's a good actor. I'm glad he started in with this. He's really good. That in '75 they needed some young people. They mention the Jewishness. They don't do much with it again. But they also have Roddy McDowell playing sort of a male companion to Fanny, who's obviously gay. And Roddy McDowell was, of course, really gay in real life as well. But he plays gay and not hiding it.
It's not subtextual.
No.
What?
No, it's not featured in any way, but there's a couple of yeah. He and the James Caan character talk about Fanny for like 2 seconds, and Caan makes clear to Roddy that I'm not interested in you, I'm interested in her. So yes. Also, it's 1975. Blacks, we get a lot of blacks. This is not correct, obviously, because and the director will have known this, but you want to put them in. They are in the show. They have a traveling show, and one of the young male leads that you have in these shows, he's black, and there's a whole black cast around them, and that the director knows that would not happen for a real season, but it's 1975, so it's happening here.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
And it was set in which year?
1927 to 1938. Anywhere in that period. So the answer is no. This is not going to have happened. However, I think, and this is another reason why I think this is a fanfic, this is what we would want to have happened. Is if the entire Funny Lady is what we would have want to have seen and happen. Some of the stuff that was missing from Funny Girl, because you don't have enough time. Closure, the newest relationship as on the wiki, because there was a new relationship and how that went, and theater. A lot about the theater and a lot of big production numbers. Interesting thing is that this Herbert Ross, who directed this, was not a stranger to the project, because he also directed the production numbers of Funny Girl. So that they already knew him. He was a very young director at that time in '68, and then in '69 he actually directed or before that, but he actually directed Goodbye Mr. Chips, which was also a musical in England. So then he got enough experienced to do that. He also directed Nijinsky. He was the dance guy. He did Nijinsky, The Turning Point, and Dancers. Yeah, also Boys on the Side. But that's he was really good. But that's later. So he could do a production number. So that's how that I think that is why they got him in, because he was familiar with this with the production with the people, and he knows how to do a production number really well. I mean, yeah, this is your guy. And a reason to watch this movie is Funny Girl is wonderful and it is iconic, but I think Funny Lady polishes a lot of what is unpolished and incomplete in Funny Girl.
Who gets to sing?
Barbra and some people in the production number, so the black gentleman gets to sing. And James Caan gets to sing, but it's not really an inner monologue thing. He's just rehearsing some, and it happens to be topical to be singing those lines. So that was smartly done. I mean, that's fine. But again, I'm going to say this is not a musical. This is a drama with musical numbers in it. In the same way, it is also not like a Dancing Street. No, that is not a Dancing Street kind of musical. So no, but it's going to be under the musicals. The Funny Girl is a musical that has been reissued in the theaters, but Funny Lady is not. It's not material to put on stage. So. Problem with the property is that it's so iconic towards Barbra Streisand, and had a lot of difficulty reissuing it in the theater as a theater production with other people in it. I had to rewrite it to put back the songs because there was so much pressure on the singer that it's too much. It is a time capsule in both the early 70s, Barbra Streisand, and unfortunately is also time capsule towards Fanny Brice, which I think is incorrect because it does not show Fanny Brice correctly. We need a
real person fanfic.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
It's always a alternate reality. It's not what happened.
We need an actual biopic for Fanny Brice, because this. If you think this is a biopic for Fanny Brice, no, it is too far off. It's too much Barbra Streisand in it. Too much other stuff. It's very good though, because famous for a reason. But I think the Funny Girl is also, yeah, not as pronounced in the setup as Funny Girl, but more polished. And that's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it.